Hey,
Ja.
mein Gott,
Oh,
Mein Gott, Walter.
bitte gut. Right, so the thing about this new wave of virtual conferencing, my view, it's the body, the homunculus, dealing with the technium, issues between the technium.
the homunculus, is that the ooze that comes out of people's noses during exorcisms?
That's a very Hollywood rendition. I'm talking about the real live Jaron Lanier ideation of the body, the physicality of your virtual presence as experienced as a homunculus is the id or the ego connecting to the technical world, the part of that dialogue that happens between technology and your brain or your cognitive centers. That it's that in a very different experience of virtual worlds by one of the pioneers of virtual reality, and the rest of the planet, which is the technical. We're talking about the technium, the guys who produce the technology, the big corporates that are trying to herd us into Zoom conferences, where today was a major failure from an ego level. Like as an ego, I ran into this insurmountable obstacle, which was an annualized subscription to Zoom payable on demand for the mere right to webcast what it is that we're doing now. And that's just huge. They must be making millions.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with somebody making millions. I think Zuckerberg deserves every cent he takes.
Yeah, I agree. In a developing world paradigm, I think there's a shift that needs to occur, because you're looking at a person who's from a middle class, bourgeois, privileged, white, an average white oak in South Africa who's unable to pay up a $14 a month subscription to Zoom to address my egotistical, obsessed self that I really need to communicate to my audience, and I really need to pull this off. And it's like a stage that we've missed, a step in local conversations that need to happen in a developing context as to open source. The tools that I was previewing today, which if it hadn't been for this anxiety that I experience, that I wouldn't have reached out to the rest of the planet to ask the question of Google, what are the alternatives to Zoom, given that I don't want to pay? I want to access my audience. What do I do? My first port of call was Open Broadcast System. It's a lovely, beautiful piece of hardware, software, where the client maybe is not readily available. Does it work on Android? Was the solution you guys downloading an Open Broadcast compliant, standards compliant? The client that would have. We have a room on Facebook has given us a room. Now, why can't we make the interconnect happen outside of Zoom? That's the what you would call unavoidable dilemma that until we've solved it, it remains this paradox of we communicating with our expectations that we could broadcast to audiences that we're stuck here with it. This is narrowcasting. This is just 3 participants in a Zoom room, right?
There are different rooms. You can create a room in WhatsApp. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to be recorded and watched by the NSA. Right. And quite a few I discovered now. I had a conversation with a friend in Spain, and they moved quite a lot, moved onto Signal. Have you heard about Signal?
Yeah. Telegram.
Yeah, Telegram. signal, and I think it's yeah, this is something we have to deal with, that we actually find our ways to communicate with each other in a channel that is not censored or not being watched, you know. So
well, the beauty of Zoom, I guess, is that it is so vulnerable to being hacked. Yeah.
Well, I don't mind. I don't mind to. I actually, honestly, I don't necessarily have much to hide, but I've been told before that when I speak my mind, and I do that even more nowadays. I learned that even more so during the lockdown to really speak from my heart and what I believe in. So I was told by friends to be careful when I say what. So, but nonetheless, I mean, bottom line is personal tea, like I have with my friend John, had personal time with each other, having a tea, the personal interaction that we all need. And we more and more, the longer this lockdown happens, the more we feel this need that we have to have personal interaction, because that keeps us alive. We are human beings. We need personal contact. Not even, I don't mean touchy. I mean, we can talk 2 meters away. It doesn't matter. But the vibration and what we exchange besides the words that we exchange is so much more, and so much more feeding us as a human being than just connect via
we feel the love. I do feel that there's presence.
But also saying that at the same time, now we know that you sit over there in Muizenberg. I'm in St. James. John is, I think, also in Muizenberg. I feel you guys. That is not, one doesn't, I don't necessarily believe that one has to sit next to each other to feel one. I feel my dad when he in Germany wants to talk to me. And then an hour later, I call him and he said, oh, yeah, I just wanted to call you. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. So this connection is always there. But there is something that my Muslim friends, for example, there's a big Muslim community in Muizenberg as well that I'm very well connected to. It's like a progressive kind of branch of Islam. And I learned that the tea time is valued as one of the highest things that you can give somebody, your personal time, and sit with somebody and to listen and to feel that person. That is like, you can't beat that with any.
It's a spirituality, but perhaps it's a psychology as well. The what is it that makes us human being? The act of being, activity of being. That's not we're not deep fake. I don't know if you saw the bizarre world that we're in of deep learning and artificial intelligence and the ability to synthesize and create avatars. I'm not an avatar. What we are as artists, or I'm experiencing a new identity as this several trips that I've taken over my 52 years that I've been here. In this new phase with dealing with a baby for the first time. Her world that includes Android and includes these new tools is forcing me to grasp. Daddy's got to be the alpha male. I've got to know where all the buttons are. But the buttons on my screen have been radically altered and changed. It's every month there's a new release of a new software.
A new button.
New button, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I think a problem shared is a problem halved. I think that's the most amazing thing about the lockdown, because people, once that vacuum of social interaction was created and people felt safer from behind their screens in the comfort of their own home, where they had total control of all of the criteria is under their control. And therefore, I sense there was a very much of an opening up and a far deeper communication, because people had less to focus on. It's almost that they moved into a space of Zen because they had been in their house all day, every day.
Yeah.
And therefore, when they went out through the portal of Zoom, they were going out and deeper, I think. Like, for instance, even my dream space, while locked in my house, my dreams became deeper and deeper and much more lucid. And I think that mental shift of lucidity within the dream space, as a society, we're becoming much more lucid in our communication space, the way we are zooming across to each other and saying,
surprise, the drop in, I've got to plug Kachen Khoisan literature from the 80s, the struggle days, the lucid dreaming issue. I had an article on virtual reality, and there was going to be a future of the human experience. And one of those minor disasters, I guess. There never was an issue 8. We only had seven issues of this rave culture magazine. And the KLF, K Foundation, and the lost tapes of Jim Corty's DMT experience in my living room in Mission District in San Francisco. He said, you know, you're going to experience other people on the other side of the screen. And I'm like, yeah, John, it's called video conferencing. Haven't you heard about? This is before Skype. The picture tell system, and we had a see you see me link. Douglas Rushkoff, one of the pioneers of Siberia. There's a book written by a United States-based tech writer. And this man, he periodically comes up now and then in my stream. There's like keywords if I have certain conversations. The Douglas Rushkoff robot or homunculus called Rushkoff. Which half of you are the machine, and which half of you are the real John Bauer or the real Lars Fischedick? And I guess that was the train of thought that I was entertaining you, I guess, with a complete blow of tangents. It's just not even necessarily relevant, but video conferencing as historical data, the world's first intercontinental Skype link, you could say, between the States and just down the road, Woodstock, occurred from a techno fair in San Francisco via an ISD. It was a room in Canada. We needed to connect that room to a room in Switzerland, and each techie literally connected the links up. There was no standardized ISDN. There was a 64K and a 56K, and South Africa hadn't gone for the 64-bit version. We had a weird 56 kilobyte ISDN infrastructure that needed, because of sanctions and the way that the apartheid state had gone off in a very different siege era. And it's quite relevant to where we are now. I mean, we seem to have come full circle. State of emergency, state of national disaster. So we're still in a national disaster, stage 5 lockdown, and forced to address, maybe there was a dark period during the blackout, not the Blitz. It wasn't the Blitz. It was the period in telecom history when there was no ISDN or broadband or dial-up at all. For the majority of South Africans, we were 15 years behind the rest of the world, 15 years behind the Bay Area. We don't have the same concerns or the same. If you isolate any community for that length of time, the technology, most South Africans I find see this magic, and they want to be part of it. But there's a couple of steps that we've missed, just in terms of user interface and ease of access. That I guess this is why we're having a community-driven virtual communities, John. Building virtual communities today. What is it that we need to do? So in order to move forward, we need to.
So I would love a future where all the roads get sold, and they build houses over the roads, and that our neighbors then, instead of being on 3 sides, are on 4 sides, and we just use drones to send things, and we don't leave our homes. We lose the expectation of going out.
Well, listening.
Yeah, once we've lost the expectation of going out, I think that this new normal will become, quite old hat. And Lars, who's an architect of training, I think that the new city, if we do gridlock and just sacrifice the ability to drive around in a car because there are no roads, that I think could be a very beautiful state.
You see, I mean, when you look at the science fiction movies of the last 30, 40 years, where they build vertical cities, and we are faced with a population problem on this planet, and architects come now out of the neck of the woods with those vertical cities. This is one of the possible solutions to deal with things. But the technology part, I find, even though the technology, before the lockdown, there was sometimes that discussion, the technology is like bad and we need to reconnect with nature, which is all true. I believe that too. I actually have reconnected with nature even more so through the lockdown. The animals come closer. I've got 2 pigeons here. They live basically on my balcony. And when you walk through outside, it feels like the butterflies are even flowing closer. The birds are flowing closer, flying closer. It seems like the animals, they resonate to the vibration that we all of a sudden have. We all became slower and almost to a point of standstill, but not standstill. I mean, we're still moving ahead in a way, or around, let's call it. We're still moving around. But this lockdown is like now all of a sudden you go, it's so nice to have this technology to be able to connect to my friends in Cape Town, in Germany, everywhere. So there's this incredible awakening in a way that's like, hey, this technology is not that bad, like some people say. But saying that at the same time, we created this technology. We humans, some say we fucked the planet up, but some say, I would say we're actually damn smart as well. So, but we are we are now waking up even more so to the point where we realize we fucked up on big levels. So, hey guys, clean up the shit that we left behind, or that we created. Let's clean first up the shit. And from where do we move on now? We have all the technologies in the drawers all over the world. We've got solar power, we've got batteries, we've got it all. It's time to open those drawers and get that stuff out. Build it. Come on, guys. I saw cars built from an African guy from Zimbabwe. He built a little electro car for his son out of 4 planks of wood, some wheels on it, and it's a hybrid. He built a hybrid. And then there's that we know the story. Okay, we actually don't need to do anything, but like the power of money and the corporations that are in power for so long with the fossil fuel industry, I would say, it's actually on the brink. We all know that we actually, if we go further with this fossil stuff, we fuck it up. We fuck it even more up. But he has a possibility to say, hey, guys, let's readjust. Let's get that stuff out of the drawers and move around with those drones. They can be hybrids. They can be driven by solar, by wind, whatever. Yeah, there's an opportunity, an incredible opportunity to wake up. Are we waking up? Are we waking up now?
You have the environmental movement, environmental justice movement, my problem child, Earth Life Africa, and the DNA of environmental justice and climate change and carbon in the future. All of that is a separate experience. It's the reality shift. There's a multiverse, a multi-dimensional reality that we're embracing fully, conscious, new levels, tweak, new levels of tech, new levels of the unknown, uncharted, yet to be discovered, terrain. There's no point in having Western conditioning systems. We say, when we talk about a map, are we talking about territory? Are we talking about something that needs to be colonized? Clearly not. I'm not a colonizer, settler person. Yeah, we're all ready to nail the title deeds into the new tech sector that's coming at us. Hell no. I think what we're doing is architecting, co-creating, and co-architecting. Bake your own software. If there's a hack, or if there's a bug, some of the bugs are very interesting hacks. Not all features are bugs. That's what I've learned. So sometimes if you go for the let's get rid of all the bugs, you end up with the monotonous drone of one man who owns that button that you obsessed about. Right, so no Skype, no. We don't want to be controlled by Zoom or Facebook. What we want are new tools. Hang on, we have those tools. So what does that mean? If we have the tools, all we need is to acquire is the knowledge, the capacity, the community, artistic virtual servers, new registries, new databases. Outside of surveillance world, I don't want to be surveilled. I want to have control. Well, I want to share.
So I'm quite
my own terms.
I'm quite the opposite. I love the fact that there's surveillance, and for instance, 2 nights ago, a friend of mine in London was about to kill himself, and he puts this out on Facebook. And it's great. I obviously send him a message saying, hey, Mark, don't kill yourself. But I also know that alerts go out, and that Facebook knows.
I don't agree. I
totally
unagree, because the surveillance and all that the people actually can watch us to a state that they do now is under the cover of we only protecting you. And it's a big bullshit. Sorry, I need to be frank here. And besides the fact that if somebody wants to kill himself or herself, I'm not in her or his shoes. I also don't, anyway, that's another subject.
Lars, just one line, right?
Okay.
Don't be a jerk and sell access to my audience. If I'm the artist, I must pay access to my audience. No. That's a Zuckerberg jerk off. There's some tactic.
Okay.
Created the situation.
No, I'm far from Zuckerberg. I'm far from Zuckerberg jerk off.
Cool.
That is
cool.
That is. You don't get me. You don't get me what I was just saying. I'm saying Steve Jobs, that I'm a big admirer, and still I know he can hear us still. Steve Jobs was adamant and fighting for the privacy of Apple users, that NSA wasn't able to go into the Apple computers. They fought. And they're still trying to stay away from it. Yes, yeah. And
living in a world where everything's the wrong way around. I'm a mirror image.
No, that's coming up forwards. So back to my point.
I think you didn't get what I was saying. I think you didn't understand what I was saying.
Back to my point.
If you call me a Zuckerberg jerk, then you clearly didn't understand where I was coming from. I just need to get something to drink.
Cool.
So back to the point of my friend who wanted to kill himself. You know, the emotional stress that I would be under normally would be great, because I'd be worried. You know, he's under lockdown, and he's flipping out. But knowing that, okay, he's put this message up, Facebook has detected this message, shown it to me, but also shown it to all his close family.
Right.
And enabled his close family to step in. You know, his status, I think, read, "Who wants to watch me kill myself on live streaming?"
Yeah.
And you know, most suicide attempts are a cry for help.
No, here's where I would commit suicide. All right. I kill myself when I've realized I've sold my private, most innermost, intimate connections to people who range from you know, all walks of professional life and different periods. Here's a gift, running out of time. Love it. Okay. So we've sold that to a corporation called Zoom, who then are making money off the webinars that they've, you know, this is they led us into their world. They drew us in with free incentives, incentivized us to the point where we have no control over that very crucial last mile, that intimate webinar that we were going to cast to 3 audiences, 3 streams: John Bauer's stream, David Robert Lewis' stream, and Lars Fischedick, your scene.
Fischedick.
Yeah.
Fischedick.
That's the most interesting.
So the narrative of that, we've sold our data to Facebook.
I'm gonna have to hide this now that I don't do advertising.
Like I love the fact that Facebook makes my world. I love the fact that Facebook makes my world bigger. I'm reaching people from all around the world.
Right.
It's costing me nothing.
Right.
And the fact that Zuckerberg has managed to create millions of jobs for other people by the fact that I just sit and waffle in front of my camera while making pots. It to me, it's you know, it's great. And I mean, you know, it's the time and the age in which we live, and to criticize the age in which we live, it's like, well, you know, well, try any other age. You know,
that's the point. We're not allowed to criticize anymore. If one person or one corporation, wherever on the planet that corporation is, and is surveying you and your communication with whoever you talk to, that comes back actually to what I said earlier, that the personal interaction, the personal delivery of a message via the mouth and via the head and the heart is so much more valuable than actually, and it can't be surveyed. That message can't be surveyed. But if you've been looked at,
utilized,
it
can be
resold. Why do I have to participate in a rice bag that falls over in China? I'm not interested. Nowadays, we have to participate into the burning of a building where people jump out of the windows. Why do I have to participate in it live? Why? What is that for? To make me scared. They control what information is going to be fed to me. And if
but
they
you
want
can turn it off.
Yes, I can. I do turn it off. Nowadays, I turn it off.
Studies. There is empirical evidence that they are able to persuade through influencing the influencers. If a person is an influencer, that person then has rankings, and they rank you according to your ability to influence. So if I persuade you, John, as a major influence in the ceramic world, and that become obsessed by something, and that obsession works in my favor, I could become incredibly wealthy as a result of doing things which you have no immediate access to. You think you made choices, but those choices were predetermined. It's a very deterministic worldview. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of determinism.
Yes.
I am. When it comes to tech.
My stepfather, who worked for an American roller bearing company, he regularly traveled to America, and he was responsible for Europe and Russia for that market. And he said so often, and at the time I didn't understand it because I was a youngster, I was in my teens, and then later in my 20s, he kept on saying the lobbyism in America is bad. And I slowly get an understanding what lobbyism and endorsement and what that all means. And you tapping into that, David.
Right.
That is the
ultimate
prefabricated. You think you have a free choice, but you actually, it's highly influenced.
Yeah. That's the world that we are in. That deterministic world that created this highly. It's a provocative, but it's an influential marketing. The president.
It's a fake freedom being sold.
Right. So
but if you were to unplug, you say fake freedom. So if we were to unplug and become a Luddite and move into the middle of the Karoo, for instance, would you be more free or less free? And
less free.
John, Lars and John, and you can put this on one of my all-time favorite. It's going to be up there with quotations that will be memorable. Right, and this is now today as evidence that there is something interesting going on here. John, when you talk about the Karoo, what we are thinking about is the abstraction, the virtual Karoo that needs to be created. That when you say, if I move to the Karoo, and we're having this conferencing, am I a Luddite? No. Because we would still have access to this technology in the Karoo. But if you take the metaphor, the person who discards technology is anti the.
Oh, okay, I get it.
But the idea, and it's still something that needs to be written down. As I speak, this idea seems to have manifesting itself. That the metaphor of the Karoo is as a place of open skies and freedom, away from the badness of everything that we talk about, this watch people who are influencing the influencers in a scheme to generate income, right, off our influence. That we take that conversation forward of creating virtual communities using the new tools and the new understanding and the knowledge that we are more capable than we've ever been. This is we stealing fire from these new gods. These taking the essence of thank you for allowing us to meet in this virtual room, but I would like access to my audience today. And why was that not possible? What is preventing me from accessing my audience? Am I a fool? Clearly, there's a solution that doesn't cost in the long run, especially in lockdown. And this is a fundamental. If this was a strategy meeting, we had to, if this was going to be life and death, people are dying, and there's COVID-19, and it's urban centers. How many of us are going to be affected? I've done some of the math modeling. And we can talk about epidemiological issues, and maybe that's a good side hustle, as it were, as a person who's a journalist by trade, if not profession. I have written extensively on the bungling of the crisis in this country. And of course, no one wanted to bungle, so we all leapt on the bandwagon of lockdown. And that has come
What does it mean, bungle, in that sense?
To fumble the ball, to drop the ball, to trip up. We tripped up when we became
okay. To question things, and
well, when we as a tried to nation build around Wuhan, alarm bells were ringing. Like, what is going on? Why is this like a Springbok nation building presidential moment, bringing back quarantine expats to the country and having another quarantine without the borders being closed? This was like a big like hello. Like if you
well, I think that the result of lockdown has been exactly what was needed and required, and I think lockdown has been amazing. I think that there's been enormous spiritual growth, and I think especially the way that it's created new communities. And I think the president has done an incredible job when you look at what he had available to him. So within his limited toolbox, he has played our president.
Ramaphosa.
Okay.
Yeah. So within his options, he has given us, I think, the best possible result. I think that there may be other politicians that have gone out of their way to create problems, but I think Ramaphosa himself has steered this crisis incredibly gracefully and artfully.
I agree.
Lars,
but it was rather about we're putting our focus now on Cyril. I agree that he did a good job, but we moved away from this kind of like, if I don't agree with something, that I have to cut off from that. And it's not. I love my Mac, I love my Apple, I love the technology, but I don't want to be surveyed. And especially I want to keep my freedom and my freedom of speech. If I'm being censored with my opinion to publicly, not publicly, but like between friends, tell them my opinion, and my American friend, for example, and I've been watched, and then I get a censored, I get an email saying, you're not allowed to say things like that, which happened to friends of mine, even before Facebook and WhatsApp. It happened already. When did he get an email? He was making jokes, inappropriate jokes, and received from a body of whatever, received an email and said, stop this. Yeah, he got a fright, I tell you. That's not cool.
I was put on a list.
What
What
kind of jokes?
For
that's not the point now. It's not the point now. It doesn't matter which kind of jokes. But you were suggesting, because how I spoke, John, you said, oh, your solution is then to move into a hut on the top of the mountain. That is not the solution. A friend of mine, actually not too far from here, quite close to our community, and I'm not going to say names now, his aim is to create a community somewhere in a piece of land, somewhere in the outback. And then I go like, well, you want to, that was my answer. I said, if I want to create a community of my liking, I start first of all with myself and act in the way that I'm happy with. And then I maybe, through showing my children, for example, this is actually anyway the best way to raise children, to lead by example. And then it might have an effect, a ripple effect to my friends, that I surround myself with people that also disagree, of course. It's very important. My good friends, if my good friends don't kick my butt sometimes, then they're not good friends anymore. What I'm saying by that is I want to create the community as part of the community. I don't want to remove myself somewhere in the nick of the woods. What should I do there? I mean, besides that, I like to have a hut in the woods, but this is only just like for a little getaway to recharge my batteries. But I want to be able to recharge my batteries here in my apartment, and with the sea here. I don't want to need to go somewhere else.
Right. The virtual hut community that runs on solar power, where batteries are not necessary for your existence or your well-being. That's a dream. Many dreamers and pioneers for many decades have uttered those well-trodden.
We're almost there. We're almost there. We've got it all. Elon Musk. I think he's doing an amazing job.
The Musketeers are doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, the Musketeers.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm talking about D'Artagnan, huh?
All for one for one for all.
One for all for one, and one for all. That's it. That's true.
A Mandler.
Dumas. Isn't the writer Dumas?
He was a black European Frenchman, apparently, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be, yeah.
I think he.
Oh, speaking of which, Maria was also dark-skinned.
Yeah.
We know that by now. Go on. I mean, the Pope in Rome, he still tries to hide it. But anyway.
It's a shame what happened in Rome and Italy and the major centers that will take a long time to recover, but the recovery is going to be online. That's definitely, the internet is booming. So whatever the nasty bug that emerged out of that hellhole, Wuhan, Wu flu, that nasty bug is a big lesson, a big teaching, and a big opportunity for all of us to build virtual community. So I welcome you to continue this, whatever it is, an encounter that we could just build upon, creating a new way of dialoguing. It's not necessary that I have to be right or correct, or you don't have to be wrong even. We can have many of us, many opinions, many verbs, right?
Isn't this what it's about? It's about compassion. It's about listening to the other, and also about inviting the unknown and also the things that I'm scared of, that we are scared of. Inviting. I mean, for example, I just recently heard from a friend of mine that the devil is such this guy living in the underworld. It's actually the antipole to the good, but he's not bad as such. It's rather he was a god in mythology. He's been painted as this hell live, if you don't behave on the planet, then you burn in hell for eternity. That's all nonsense. Sorry, I have to say this, because the hell is, we create the hell here on the planet.
Yeah.
And afterwards, hey, come on. It's all about control in the end, actually.
As we're reciting the prayers for the dead and the dying, and our dying world, the final nail in the coffin of the noughties and the 90s and the Bowie decade that I chose to reclaim, lost pop heroes, dead pop heroes, the only way to place this in perspective. 2020 has come with a big bang and no uncertain terms decided to create its own worldview, its own reality, whether we like it or not. So we've got to grab it. It's the future that we've all plotted and planned, and the only future that we have is now. Right? That's the only future we have is now.
We only have now. We always had only now.
Department of Immediate now is.
So I think one of the most interesting things that I'm finding about virtual community is before lockdown, I was participating in listening to a number of podcasts. One of them is the Potter's Cast with Paul Blaze.
Yeah.
Another one is the Tales of the Red Clay Rambler. And I'd always hear them talking about, you can support me on Patreon.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how Patreon has now become much more widespread, because we've all got these people following us. And Patreon is what I would refer to as one of the tools of compassion within a virtual community.
Oh, man.
Oh,
gosh.
And I think the tools of compassion within a virtual community is a very interesting space. We've had the CAN networks arise, where they've sort of surveyed everybody in the immediate area and tried to identify people who are in need before they're in need. And so before they're in need.
John, can we do something for people in need right now? Because I've been thinking about Patreon as a way to reward.
I don't know.
Well, South Africa, at one point, there was this genderless term for waiters and and the restaurant industry. Everyone's buying coupons for your favorite restaurant, but the kids, the 20-year-olds, the teenagers in this country have got a hard deal out of lockdown. I mean, I can think of nothing worse than being quarantined with one's parents, and if you're an adolescent, nothing worse. And all those jobs that have been taken in the informal sector,
I mean,
no UIF.
It depends. The teenagers are known that they sleep a lot, and I think they're going to sleep hopefully a lot.
Right. So it was just when John started going on about Patreon, and my gut reaction with that is
I can't talk about Patreon because I don't know Patreon, but it's okay. You guys keep
talking. It's a reward sponsor site where you can be sponsored as a creator, and So
the benefit of Patreon is when I do my live streaming, one of the options on Patreon is just buy John a cup of coffee, $2 a month.
Oh, okay.
So people sign up and they go, right, I really love the stuff you're putting out. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee once a month.
So in your world, there's a button if I can tip you. I press a
you're just buying me a cup of coffee. So you're putting it into context within people's values.
That's quite nice. I like that.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, there are different options. For $8 a month, you get to join a Zoom pottery class. And so I do the pottery classes free of charge on Facebook.
So write a module plugin, for your Facebook Messenger, or the open source version of Messenger, that I can just tip. And the back end is Patreon.
I like that thing. It's many years ago where I actually was a bit kind of upset about the fact that big NGOs, worldwide NGOs, like I don't know how much, but like a big percentage of the whole giving something good is being chowed up by administration. And I for a long time I said, why doesn't anyone come up with a program on an app where I can directly donate, buy a fridge here. If I hear of a family in Uganda and they just need a fridge now, that's their needs. They don't need a bag of rice when the Germans say, oh, we'll give you all the rice with our ships. They don't need rice. Maybe they need a cistern, or they need a new pair of shoes. And I can go directly without big administrators chewing that stuff up. That sounds a little bit like that.
It sounds like cryptocurrency again. It sounds like a crypto solution to puzzle. Yeah. Is there are many ways to skin a cat? Many ways.
And the other thing is, the other thing that Patreon allows as well is so it can be just a one directional giving, and the other thing it allows is one of my options is $500 a month, and I send you a box of goodies a month, and you have no idea what's in the box. I just choose what I think is $500 worth.
But the art world would be tragically bereft if there wasn't a random box solution to this. Like, why make this so one-to-one? Why can't it be multiple iterations of the oneness?
The more multiple, the better. Yeah, totally.
A box to be random stranger.
Yeah, say for instance, there's a poor artist in Paris. He struggles really. He needs just what he needs is oil paints. Come on, let him give some oil paints. You know?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
A box of paints to random children. That there's it could be Vienna. There's some kind of deployment strategy to deploy art. The requirements, the bare minimum requirements to.
That sounds a little bit like that sounds a little bit like the Geschwister Scholl dropping flyers in the school. Whoa! You throw all that stuff out. You go, oh my God! All the children are going to be creative again. Oh my God!
Yeah. So a paintball, a solution to lack of educational resources in this time of need. I guess drone deployment.
Drone deployment. Drop the school books all over South Africa.
Need to come to the kids that desperately need of arts related.
Hang on. Okay, here's the thing. What's going to be written in those school books? Who's going to be the writer of those school books?
We don't want to have that conversation. That results in a moribund committee.
I know.
So the community area network, the CANs, that's been a very interesting thing, seeing how a community self-organizes, and this is happening all over the world. And these tools of compassion, that are just being created out of well, I don't know, maybe out of something, maybe out of nothing. I don't really understand that.
Better than I can or can't is alt.can. Can.alt alternative, where you can't assume that all community, the aggressiveness of the way that these community action networks have been rolled out has led me to believe that there's a centralized, like a super socialist of some sort at the center of the CAN system. I've had surveillance issues with some of these CANs. Some of the CANs I've only 2 WhatsApp groups. And the one was, to my knowledge, there's a food security one that my partner Tamelo is involved with. It seems to be quite functional. There's there was a CAN that is in the medical world that I've had some interactions with about contact tracing, but it's mainly medics and issues to do with clinics. And then there was another CAN in the Southern Cape that they wanted to arrest my opinion. I was told in no uncertain terms that spreading false information. I posted a link to one of my postings on MediaAlternatives.com. And when I'm shameless self-promotion, shamelessly promoting myself.
That is, you get a fright in your bones, don't you? If you get censored and you get told, whoa, hey. This is what we're talking about earlier.
But David, it is accurate because it's an article you've written on a site that you own. So by them saying that this is self-promotion, that's not a surveillance state. That's just somebody on a group saying,
let's abuse. The abuse comes in the form of let's apply the wrong medication to your correctness, like your lack of correctness or your lack of politically correctness. Like let's use the tools that have been given us by the Disaster Management Act, or to combat the fake news sites, right?
So let's focus on the good of the CAN.
Let David finish his thought. John, please. Let David finish his thought.
There's a world of difference between blatant fakeness and blatant self-promotion. You might be completely honest and correct and have a science paper, for instance, that has yet to be published in a science publication. There's a lot of grip, I find. The whole process of peer review. There's a debate about pre-publication and research and the whole scientific endeavor. And So when it comes to borderline, like the social sciences and the humanities and the arts sector, a lot of these issues aren't so important necessarily. Empirical based evidence isn't necessary for an artist to substantiate your criteria for making art in scientific or mathematical epidemiological modeling systems. No, surely not. And I'm not saying that my writing is artistic. I write in the current affairs department at Media Alternatives and as a social scientist. And I have a degree from an institution of learning. So to snap out of that and engage with visual arts, the communities that need to be created. The obvious question is, so John, what happened to the Community Action Network? Can for beautifying the messaging, creating better opportunities and outcomes for starving artists? What happened to that?
So let's just focus on CAN in its pure sense. CAN in its pure sense is going out there and assessing the needs of people, and before they fall into a desperate situation, sourcing what they need and making sure they've got what they need. And it's an amazing tool of compassion. Compassion might be equated to socialism, but the people who are giving voluntarily. They're not having anything seized by the state. This is entirely a pursuit of people who have, giving to people who don't have. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. The fact that it's spread all around the world almost instantaneously is not a sign that there's some godfather pulling strings. It's a sign that it works and that there's a deep human need for us in a crisis to show each other compassion.
That's absolutely true.
And your remark about there being some sort of godfather pulling the strings is highly dangerous. And one flippant comment like that can start a series of conspiracy theories that could prevent a whole lot of people receiving the help that they desperately need from wealthy people who are entirely voluntarily and out of their own fruition and heart space helping. So I think it's very important to defend the CAN and be incredibly vigilant
Compassionate
about saying anything.
Usage, Lars. I'll give you compassionate smokers allowance. Deserve a ration. To call it abuse is irrational.
Yeah, but the CANs have to operate within the law. They can't send you alcohol.
To call anyone who imbibes, it takes a tipple. To call that person an abuser or a perpetrator of some nefarious act that is somehow depriving the state of their safety in the public health sector is irrational. It's nonsensical. It makes fun of the fact that we're all adults, and that as adults we have the capacity to make adult decisions concerning the body. In fact, Article 12 and also Article 21 of our Constitution defines and protects the right to ownership and control over the body, and also to be considered in possession of psychological integrity. Hence, therefore, if I want to use alcohol to moderate or my daily vice, the state has no business being in my bedroom, has no business inquiring as to why it is that I require compassionate substance abuse. I'm using that in its not incorrect form.
Yeah. So, David, if we look at another law, another law that we could look at in a parallel light that restricts that. So, I'm in the same boat as you. I've got no more alcohol in the house.
Yeah.
And I'd love a drink, but if we look at people who suffer from body dysmorphic syndrome, so they believe they've got 4 legs, and it's a real syndrome. And the only way that they feel normal is if they go to a doctor and have 1 leg removed, and then they feel they've got 2 legs, but actually they've only got 1 leg.
John, can I give you a
and
tip?
So there's a yeah.
Can I give all 3 of you a tip?
Yeah.
Medicalizing the use of alcohol has its a particular set of problems attached to the medical model. The medical model doesn't describe artistic endeavors. The medical model fails miserably when it comes to poetry, when it comes to music, when it comes to a range of activities that, broadly defined, constitute health.
I know why. Because it's
Why is that?
tied to the modern science. It's tied so strongly to that and doesn't allow any spiritual or anything into that field that has something to do with something else. Like, for instance, homeopathy. Just one example of many other.
Traditionally, my perspective is that it's mere placebo. But in saying that, you're entitled to your delusion. I'm not going to take all your delusions, your romantic delusions, seriously. Yeah. The lovemaking department, compassionate, ethical substance use, right? I'm arguing for passionate lovemaking while under the influence of alcohol in one's own bedroom. And I think that the state has no business being in my living room. There's no business surveilling me in my. There's a point where I think they drop off, that they need to seriously take a step back and say, what is it that they have accomplished in their draconian denial of my it's my right, my birthright. I come from a long lineage of my ancestors would drink on a Friday night. Just the use of kosher wine, for instance, is a subject that no one's bothered to contemplate what needs to be done. And I'm not saying for by any means that I'm a kosher Jew or kosher nut. But the traditions that run parallel to a secular society. You know, what defines us as human beings is the ability to let our hair down, or the compassionate model that it's within the definition of health to behave humanly, as humanly as possible. And that's what's missing in this lockdown.
Within the definition of health, let me give you a concrete example.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm also suffering under the alcohol ban. But my mother and my grandmother were killed by a drunk driver.
Okay.
And where are their rights within alcohol? And I think that's the thing, is it goes beyond you personally. And it looks at what's good for our society. So I would have had a much happier life if a drunk driver hadn't driven over my mother and grandmother when I was 5 years old.
Right.
That was a really crap thing to happen. And there's a lot of really crap things happening. And you might be able to control your alcohol consumption. But the president is right. We live in a lawless country of alcohol abusers. And the suffering and the pain that is causing under lockdown.
No, hang on. John,
we're drifting off here. We're drifting off.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that alcohol being banned is saving an enormous amount of people from abusive situations and helping people. You know, when people are drunk, they won't obey the rules. That's just how it is. So often you see drunk people doing really stupid things. And
I
disagree. Lars, do you agree with that?
No, I disagree.
So there's two against one.
Because I can't. No, it doesn't even matter. I mean, now I want to say something to that, and this is truly my belief. I come from Germany. I grew up in a divided Germany. My one on the father side did some, father side was, let's call it the good side, and mother side was the bad side. But what I want to say is I come from a, not too long ago, there was a totalitarian system in Germany. And a totalitarian system starts with imposing rules for the good. They first say that's the good. Let's give everybody a radio that we connected. Oh, wonderful. But what we're going to hear on this radio? The Führer himself. Oh, okay. So that's one example. But I wanted to come back to earlier what you said. If millions run into a certain direction, that doesn't mean that they're right. If they say, okay, this is for the greater good, this is all usually, mostly under the Deckmantel, under the cover of something bigger, of control. So when I personally heard, and I understand, I get your point with the alcohol, that there are families where they beat up their wives. I don't agree with that, absolutely. And yes, when they have alcohol, they do it even more so. But they also do it without the alcohol. But anyway, they do it maybe more so with the alcohol. But when the alcohol was banned and the cigarette, I haven't smoked for 5 years. But when I heard that the smoking is not allowed, I personally, here in my 2-bedroom apartment, decided, okay, this is a good time for me to start smoking. Because it was for me personally, some people might laugh about it, some people whatever, but for me personally, it was my personal own freedom to make that decision. And I made it very consciously for myself. I call it my little 2-bedroom revolution, whatever. But this whole selling of something that is like for the greater good, it immediately stinks to me. And because it smells, it has a smell that I can relate to. Not that I was growing up in a totalitarian system, but after the Second World War, there was a big rise up of the young Germans that said, stop, the Nazis are moving back into the companies and there's nothing. Sorry. So RAF, I'm just saying, Rote Armee Fraktion, RAF, Baader-Meinhof complex. They rebelled against that, and there is a culture of rebellion. And if somebody tells me, oh, you do this, you're not allowed to do that, John, sorry, I don't agree. I totally not agree. And especially when they say it's for the greater good, that's nonsense. Even worse if they say, oh, it's because of God said or something like that. Oh, no.
Lars, I think you 100% correct in illustrating the drama of the totalitarian worldview. The coronavirus has driven us to do things which would never been considered. Half a year ago, we were living with freedoms that we took for granted, and we've given up being adults. I would have thought that given adulthood and responsibility, that the government would have realized that rationing these substances, that there would have been a directive, if not the end of the regular hours, that there would have been some rationing system, that per day that you have an entitlement to something which you either purchase or you get given. That the grapes that are grown in the Western Cape are either doled out through a dole system or are sold through the marketplace. That we don't have a weird situation. We were exporting all of this distilled. They're exporting nectar from the harvest to the rest of the world. While nannies are telling us how bad it is and how we should just give up.
I think Distell has moved into hand sanitizers. So we're not exporting.
They haven't ended production of alcohol for drinking.
Alcohol-based hand sanitizers.
So the time to call for Distell should be producing.
So Distell,
go to the toilet quickly.
Yeah. So Distell didn't produce hand sanitizers before this. And
No.
This is a war.
Not for a minute. I think
America.
that Distill are producing hand sanitizers, and they're now a hand sanitizer company. They haven't ceased alcohol production. They've merely directed a certain amount of it to a market that exists. They said, okay, we can sell a certain amount of hand sanitizer, and the rest of it's going to be
we've got to see, like with hang on one moment, or
uno momento.
Yeah. Cool. So basically, America, I'm not sure. Have they enacted the Wartime Act yet? There's a big debate about the War Industry Act.
Yeah. So here's the breakdown, right? There was a pandemic. The president enacted the Wartime Act to get General Motors and Tesla to produce ventilators. And a lot of people got killed as a result of ventilators becoming the first line of defense in a respiratory epidemic.
Oh, hang on one moment. I'm just...
There we go. You got a little baba there, David.
She's beautiful. Beautiful.
You actually do look familiar. You look familiar. I've seen you. I'm sure you know Justin and Ange.
Mm-hmm.
The whole community there. Hassan's Bakery that is now run by Abdul Latif. Yeah.
Bakery side.
In Killarney Road.
There's an Angela in my circle of Harry and
Angela Maxwell.
Tamilo, Angela's partner. What is his name?
Justin.
Sims? You don't know.
He used to run a live cafe.
Okay. The tragedy of the small businesses.
Yes.
Are we going to recover? The landlords are, I know there's like a rent strike by a lot of these businesses, but then the landlords are complaining. I've been had my utilities bill hijacked by my landlord, been very nasty. And
yeah, it's not good. In Germany, it's even worse. They don't even sit at the table to discuss how we can move forward.
Right.
They just cut some of the landlords, well, I experienced both sides. Some of the landlords and some of the tenants.
Yeah.
And there was in Germany, it's rather an atmosphere of against each other. But what I observed now in other countries, but also in South Africa, that there is rather a sense of coming together and sit at the table and say, look, I did that now a couple of days ago with my landlord, where I was luckily in the situation that I could have paid the full bill, but I just sold some artworks, and I'm quite okay now for like 2-3 months. But nonetheless, I just sent her a friendly message, and we have I live here since about 5 months. We have a really nice relationship. And before I pressed pay, I thought, like, why don't I just ask her, look, I'm an artist, da da da. And she said, look, my business is closed, and this is actually one of the last incomes that we have, and less. And I was like, super, that's 5,000 rand. 5,000 rand, that's a lot of money. Anyway, it's just my experience, you know.
Right.
It's
the new
rather,
income streams.
Like
we need income streams. The community needs income streams.
Yes.
It shouldn't be about the rest of the world has new income streams. Yay, God, and we are the funders. To be having a funding model where the emerging markets, the emerging South Africa, right, is we are expected to fund the rest of the world. That's not a model.
No.
How are we funding the European collapse? How are we funding Wall Street? In a situation where we're forced to fund Wall Street, looking at it from here.
This is
I'm a midget.
Yes. That's tapping into something that is like even bigger. What model does South Africa, but the whole continent of Africa, play in the world? How it's been pilgrimaged, raped, and in the past. And isn't this the moment to reconsider and think about the whole thing? That, listen, guys, this can't go on like this.
Coronavirus bonds, right? So the coronavirus, the lack of European solidarity is just a bit of a blow. I wasn't expecting to witness lack of solidarity on a European, the failure of the European nations to assist the Italians. I didn't see any solidarity with the Spaniards.
Europe is in a difficult role and has been since quite a while. Difficult as being in the middle of the two power struggles in the world, saying Russia and America. And it's kind of like, it's like sometimes torn, and it tries to unite to be stronger and have a bigger voice. But it's difficult. Even, young South Africa, our constitution, and the young South Africa is so young. You can even say that about Europe the same, Right. And it's difficult. They struggle.
So we're looking for leadership in the Southern African Development region, where it's not just about South Africa. It's about our region. It's not just about our region. It's about the African the Union. It's not just about the Union African solidarity. It's about solidarity with Europe, and it's about solidarity with Asia and Southeast Asia, and
it's a solidarity with the miners as well, that suffer and are not compensated. This is the time to actually get that possibly straight.
That's hygiene in the mining world. That's something that people need to talk about.
Absolutely.
The hostels were sanitation in hostels that have never been sanitized since the days of apartheid. The sanitization which occurred in Caledon Square, the police headquarters in Cape Town, which never happened. There was no moment where they went in there trying to remove and clean and scrub, and that's an incredible historical moment to be witnessing the vacation of Caledon Square by SAPS, South African Police Services, to be in that situation where they've had to move their headquarters, to be in a situation where the convention center has now become a field hospital. And what are they planning for? And hopefully it's preemptive and it's not going to be used, right? But
Yes.
all the models, everyone's talking about a peak in September, and we don't know what to expect. So the couple of these multiple realities and conversations that are things that you read and things that you have to deal with. The economic streams that have to happen in order for communities to converge, and the basic nuts and bolts of the social engineering, architecture engineering of the internet, which is are going to be our bread and butter. That's going to be the one advantage we have over coronavirus is the big data. Never before have human beings been in a, you could say that the odds are quite even that the bug that was going to really knock us off our perch as the top predator, right? And this is amazing from an environmental perspective, that human beings have been top of the food chain for centuries. To wake up to a new period of history where that was no longer true. The supply chains, the supply lines, everything crashed. The oil markets crashed, and oil's gone the way of the dodo. It's an extinct delivery system, right? It's
about bloody time.
Bloody time, right?
It's
tobacco's almost gone the same way that alcohol almost has disappeared along with that.
But the tobacco, we can grow our tobacco in our garden.
Yeah. Well, all power to home food gardens. John,
John is saying he's in the waiting room. John is in the waiting room. He waits for you to invite him again.
Oh, I see. Did we participate?
No, he himself went out. He went out because his battery died.
I got a gift. And I've got this problem with my...
It says, cool, I'm in the waiting room.
My mouse. There's something... Oops. Exit full screen. Oh, we go. I got a gift from Zoom.
Oh, there he is.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
There he is.
John?
Yeah.
We're having this conversation that's it's completely diverged from what we started out. Obviously, it's a completely new conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to happen. Where you pinch yourself, where you realize things have been going on, but you had a little bit of an inkling as to the ramifications, but part of you've been living in denial of the apocalypse. Clearly, it's an apocalypse scene that we're in, and I've got a tentative book. The end of it's about the apocalypse scene. It's the end of the Holocene period in human history. It's the end of the influence of the 20th century, and it's the shadow. Yeah, as we're moving out of the, it's the equivalent, I guess, when you talk about the sun, the heliosphere of the 20th century. The further away we get from that epoch, the influence. It's a very new way of looking at through a prism. There's a 20th century prism. 20 prism.
So I mean, I think that I've got one thing to say about the apocalypse, and that's I'll pucker my lips and kiss the apocalypse.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an exhibition. That's something you expect in a highly advanced visual arts industry. That is the title of your next show.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
We were talking for years now about the awakening, and I think we are participating and feeling and realizing that we're in the middle of the awakening. Actually,
we are the awakened ones. We are the ones that we've been awakened.
Hopefully our children even more so. But this is the time to Weichen zu stellen. You know, Weichen stellen. Weichen stellen is when you have the railroad tracks and you set the Weichen.
It's like a fork in the road.
No, to bring a viral metaphor, the viral metaphor is the shedding of the virus. There's an equivalent. It's the shedding of the code, or it's the shedding of the signification. This shedding of the period that we're in, or was, where we've come from. The virus, it's a lot of shedding of bodies, of misconceptions, businesses, the various institutions of power, the duality of the binary of superpower politics. That's over. That time has come and gone. We're in a multipolar universe where the awakened ones, the expanded ones, the expansion within of the offspring of homunculus and technium, the children of the technium, the children of the homunculus, starts looking, and there's an echo, right? There's an echo within the viral code itself, the holographic universe that we're in. There's some part of it that was necessary key to unlocking the virtual community that we've always wished and hoped for. So to end our conversation on the virtual communities note, I think just to wrap up, it's the skills that we need to acquire rapidly. I've got a child I've got to get back to my kids and some of the tasks that I had.
But it was a really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars.
Oh yes, thank you.
It wouldn't have been possible, John. It wouldn't have been possible without you. And thank you so much for connecting me up with Lars. It's good for minds to meld.
Yes. May I just a question? What is your surname, David?
I'm a Lewis.
Because I've got you in my wait, I saved you here.
Yeah.
As David. I'm
the one and only David Robert Lewis, but in my alternative universe, I'm also defective Dave. Defective Dave sometimes.
I call it David. I called you David interview with John.
Fabulous.
So what's your surname? Sorry.
Lewis. The Lewis, Robert Lewis.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I got your number.
Fantastic.
Cool. Nice to see you, John.
Cool, and you, Lars. Yeah.
Good.
Have a lekker day.
Cool. Signing out.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.